Hello and welcome to ScreenHour with me, Mikey.
With me, Kieran.
So, this week's episode, we're going to do like a convince me one, which we've done a couple of times before, because, and quite literally, I was very keen to go see the horror film Nope, and Kieran spoiled us as took a bit of convincing and still hasn't seen it. So I'm going to convince him during this episode. I've got some notes of my opinions, and Kieran's low-key going to ask me questions he wants the answer to.
Attempt to be inquisitive. The reason I haven't seen it in cinema, to be honest, is I'm not massive on horror films. Like, I can watch a horror film, but I prefer to watch it with people, because then you kind of just, like, you can be scared together, you can laugh at how crap it is together and stuff. I don't tend to watch them on my own, not because I think I'm going to shit myself. I mean, I'm sure there's an essence of that, but more so because I know I find it interesting to watch a horror on your own. I feel like it's like a party thing. It's like something you watch with people. You know what I mean?
Relishing people's like
Yeah. It's like playing the Nintendo Wii. You never really played it on your own, did you? You always played it with people.
yeah, it's Nintendo. No diss to anybody who plays Nintendo Wii, like, but it's not a serious gaming console, is it?
I don't even know if the Wii still exists. I think it just got.
I think it's died.
Yeah, I think it discontinued or something.
It's been replaced by the Switch, and not to
Yeah.
go off too much of a tangent, I'll let you off of the Switch because apparently Breath of the Wild is one of the best games ever done. So I'll let
Yeah.
you off there.
Did Dan tell you that?
Everybody.
Oh, right.
General consensus, but Dan loves it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to get back into the matter at hand, the overview of this film is it's a perfectly like suspenseful thriller, and it builds up really well, and it just relishes in on asking like the audience questions with loads of like mad metaphors, and I like ask them to think about stuff, but without being too pretentious. That's probably like my favorite thing about it, and I'll like talk about that a bit more without trying to spoil it too much. But the main like premise is a family investigates the strange and weird things that's happening on their ranch after the death of their father, and it's like the Hollywood horse rancher's business is struggling after the death of the dad, and that literally happens, and it's in the trailer. That happens in the first 5 minutes. So between like their dad's like death, the motivation, and as I say, it starts because he's like the leader of the business, the Hollywood ranching business. They're like motivated to try and catch/film whatever's happening on the ranch.
Oh, like it's a bit like sort of ghost hunting sort of thing.
Yes, yeah, that's one way of expressing it. Like, so that is the premise, but there's a lot going on. Also, like it's a bit more streamlined than just there's a lot going on. So if the scene hasn't got you on the edge of your seat, if you ask me, you're probably laughing, because as you know, it's directed by
Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele, and he started off with like his co-writing friend Michael King in the sketch show. And like I've watched this couple of sketches I've watched from that. They're quite hard to get hold of in the UK, to be fair, but I watched quite a few on YouTube.
So there's one I saw which was hilarious, and he's I think it's what's the other one called?
Michael King.
Michael Keane, that's it. He's coming out of like a supermarket or something, and he was like, "Oh, it's $1 to save kids." Have you seen that one?
No.
Yeah, and it's like it's $1 to save kids, and he was like, "Oh, I'm busy at the moment. I can't." He's like, "Sure, please. It's only $1 to save a kid, right?" And he's like really pestering him, and eventually he's like, "Oh, fine. Here's a $5." And he goes, "You can save 5 kids now." And he goes, "Right, you are." And then he sort of whistles. This van drives up, right? And they count 5 kids out of the car, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 6th one tries to come out, and he goes, "Nope, not you." Shuts the van, and the van drives off, right? And the kids are like free again, right? And then like Jordan Peele just sort of walks off, sort of like, "Thanks, sir," and sort of like, right? And then Michael Keane's just like, "What the fuck?"
Well, he's not wrong. I suppose he did save the kids, but that's pretty gold.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Which is pretty good. Is where there's slaves. And like it's pretty dark, but that's probably one of the reasons all of it, I suppose. Is they're getting auctioned off, and like they're like football, like the typical American thing, and to a degree British like sports team thing. They're the last to be picked at the auction, the slave auction.
Oh,
and at the first, they're like Oh yeah, they obviously don't want to be slaves. Then as it goes on, they start getting jealous. Like they're like, "Why does nobody want us as slaves?" And it just it's really fucked up in Gold. But this is like Jordan Peele's like third directing debut, and that is between he's got Get Out, which is great, and he's like Us, and both of them are good. Particularly Get Out, especially like for a directing like feature film debut. Like everybody loves it, and I'm in there as well. It's mostly because like the twist is good, and like I say, like I don't know, it's the dialogue seems really well in his films. Like it flows really well, and it's colloquial, and it's funny. Like apart from the actual like horror elements themselves and like what actually happens or the twists, like, apart from that, it's quite plausible. Like everything which happens, like
Yeah.
so that's really good. But this one, I think it's not as good as Get Out, but that's not like to besmirch it at all. No, us, it's better than Us. I think Us gets a bit too like messed up. Not so much hard to follow, but Us is a bit more messed up. I think the cast is stellar, and in like a lot of. Do you know how actors and directors have like combinations which they tend to rely on?
Sort of like Scorsese and Leo,
Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio, like
and Nolan and Michael Caine.
Bale and Michael Caine and things like that. Like
Yeah.
so with him, and he's like Jordan Peele's very straight up said about it. Daniel Kaluuya is
Yeah.
is the main character in both Get Out and Nope, and his sister, the lady who plays his sister. No, like try and pronounce her name now, but she's she's absolutely great. Like in this, she's. Do you remember Emerald in Lightyear? She played Izzy Hawthorne. So check out
Oh, the child.
Izzy Hawthorne. Yeah, yeah,
Granddaughter. Or
yeah. I think it's the granddaughter. Yeah,
All right, she voices her.
she voices her. That's the biggest thing I've seen her in.
All
So
right.
Daniel Kaluuya and Kiki Palmer are the main two characters. They're the brother and sister of the Hoodie Hollywood Ranch, and most of the cast are great, and they lead it. The like only little things I have, like, not so much qualms with the cast, is Keith David plays their dad. And as I mentioned, like he dies in the first less than 5 minutes, and you don't spoilers as well because he's dead. You don't see him a lot, even in flashbacks. So he's great. There's a older like cinematographer character which comes into it you don't really connect with, but apart from that, it's absolutely gold. The cast is solid. It's definitely worth watching alone just for Daniel Kaluuya's performance. And like, I don't want to say Kiki Palmer is unknown because I'm looking at her IMDb and it's very arrogant for me to say she's an unknown because she's got quite a long list of things. But this is the second thing I've seen her in, and she comes quite prominent in this, and she's really charming in it. And like as it goes on, she becomes more of a force of nature, more badass. But it's one of my favorite things about it is it's refreshing having a horror which is mostly set in the day, which is still a bit scary and builds like.
Oh, it's not all nighttime, so everything is just in the dark.
If I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say it's like 60% film set in the daytime, 40% at night.
Oh, okay. So it's still like a decent divide, but most horrors, they tend to be sort of 85-90% in the dark, don't they?
Yeah, and something in a similar vein, what I like about it is like a lot of horrors, especially slasher things I find, like rely on the jump scare.
Yeah.
And I think it's only done once maybe on this. But I'll tell a lie, if it's done more than once, I haven't really copped it because like I find them, as I say, like quite cheap or whatever. But then it doesn't feel cheap at all in this.
No. I mean, the biggest problems I find with horrors is, as you say, they rely too much on jump scares, and like sort of 75% of all scary things in horrors are jump scares. And to me, that feels like lazy. You know, it's all about anticipation, and it's the way that it's how it makes you sort of anticipate or feel that there's going to be something happening as such. It's not necessarily the scare itself; it's the build up, and that's what it's all about. Because sometimes the best way to do a sort of jump scare, if you're gonna do one, is you make people believe there's about to be a jump scare, right? The jump scare doesn't happen, and then a couple moments later there is that sort of jump scare. That's kind of the best way around it. But you know, the problem with some horrors as well is, I think it's a quote by Mark Twain where he says, "Don't tell me I should be scared, make me scared."
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I like about this is constantly building towards that, or like it's whether it be like the direction or whether it be the score and just like the way it's physically shot. There's not a lot of it where you're seeing the like I really do want to dance around like the like yeah.
So the creature, the beast, or whatever.
I don't want to spoil it too much, but like it doesn't physically show you it that much or up close or unobscured until the very end, and then at the end it's quite you see you know quite a little bit at the end.
So it's a bit like Cloverfield. You really only see like a leg or something like that. It's only towards the end you start to see it more on a grander scale.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah.
Yeah, like Cloverfield, and the other one I got in my head is Super 8.
Pretty good comparisons, I think. But it's none of the characters, and like I suppose this is the least you want, and it's pretty low standard for a film. None of the characters are boring. None of like even Daniel Cloutier, who's like quite a methodical, like he's got quite a pathos to him. It's his like the reason he's got is the pathos, and also like you need someone in that. You need a straight man, especially compared to his like high end, high octane like sister. None of them are like they're all interesting, they're all very captivating. Even like there's a chap who comes into it who they meet at the essentially I don't know if Maplin's is still around, but like the tech store but he essentially meets him there, and they meet him because they buy a load of surveillance and video equipment to try and catch the beast, and he ends up talking to him when he gets hyped. Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead is in it,
Where is it?
and he probably plays the most enigmatic character and the most puzzling character, like.
Yeah.
So again, I won't spoil it too much, but something he plays a childhood star, like yeah, remember Macaulay Culkin of his kind, but like
Oh yeah.
or Corey Feldman, or I don't know, whatever Zoe 101, whatever you want to call it. So, but he's clinged on to his fame, and something tragic when he was a kid happened to him, and it's a scene which is like filmed in a television studio, and between like the sound design and like the way it's physically shot, it's like it's terrifying. But one of the reasons it's terrifying is because it's framed on like a little like they've got this family sitcom, and like the star of the show is this monkey, this chimpanzee, and this chimpanzee goes mental because you know it's a chimpanzee. Not abusing it, but they are to a degree because it's on a film studio and they're telling it to do things, and you know it's not in the wild, like it's not where it should be.
Yeah.
And this chimpanzee snaps and kills a couple of the cast members, and one of the cast members, like a couple of the cast members survive, one of them barely, and one of the cast members survive is Stephen Yeun's character, and how he like experienced that tragedy, and then also like spends the rest of his like not the rest of his life cashing on it, but he like is deleted that like memory through via PTSD, can hardly remember it, but he loves like he cash in on it, and you know it as a childhood star, and like he's even got like a collection of like the old like TV show he was on.
That's actually it's a bit reminiscent of what I'm going to choose as my moment of the week. So
That's quite interesting.
yeah,
But that very nicely, like it seems quite random compared to the rest of the film, but the more you think on it, the more it goes like lovely with one of the themes. And one of the like ideas of the film is introduces the idea of spectacle and what people to do to capitalize on it, and what they sacrifice the dignity of others to their and themselves to their own demise. Like,
yeah,
so recording tragedies instead of stopping them to make themselves like financial gain or famous, and just like they just see like disasters of opportunities instead of anything else, which would just be a disaster or helping something out or whatever. That's what I really like about the film, is that it's a good film going experience, but after you walk out of it, and I was talking with Charlotte, my partner, and like it just makes you think. And it's not very often you come out of like a quote unquote horror film and like it's thought provoking.
because of like the social commentary as such, it's
And the social commentary, yeah. So during one of the big scenes per se, there's a character who is like from TMZ, and like actually, if you don't know who TMZ like are very like intense, like still almost paparazzi, feel like use the word loosely, journalists who just chase them
loosely.
and it's to the point where like GTA 5 directly takes the piss out of them and many other people in the satire mission where like you're chasing people through the streets to get cameras and whatever, and they're tripping over people to get the quote unquote scoop or to get the image. And a character like that is introduced towards the end of the film, and you see what happens to him, and his main motivation is just to get the shot, just to witness the tragedy, as opposed to like, and really is to his demise.
Do you remember back in the day it was do it for the vine?
Do it for the vine, yeah, exactly.
Do it for the vine. I remember seeing a meme about that a while ago, and it was like someone was like, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if you like slid underneath that truck or something? You know, something silly like that." He was like, "I'm not going to slide under that truck. I'll probably die." And he was like, "What a stupid thing to say." And then his mate just goes, "Do it for the vine." And then the guy looks at him going, "Well, I've got to do it now." It's like that whole like, "Oh, like, are you hungry?" And like, "No, I'm not hungry. I don't fancy it." Right, and then like the camera moves away from the face, and then all of a sudden they start like pissing themselves laughing, and the camera goes back, and they're like covered in the sauce or whatever. You seen those ones? So it's like that same sort of thing. Do it for the vine.
Do it for the vine. Do a raw. But it's, and I don't want like what I like about that is you can apply it to a lot of rough things, like whether it's like I don't want to say too much on this matter because I'm not very qualified, like, but whether it would be like politics, not a politics podcast, but like social commentary. This film suggests to me, but yeah, when we like police brutality with Black Lives Matter, and like the amount of people, or just police brutality, or just bad things in general, who would you can make the argument that like bad things people need to know about, but the amount of people who would rather take the video than intervene with a bad thing.
Yeah.
And stop the bad thing.
Like complain about it later, sort of thing. But right now, I've got to film it.
Yeah, I'll just film it. Yeah. What were you doing? Well, I just stood there and watched. Well, felt like good that way, wasn't it?
It's like those videos I've seen of parents filming their kids as their kids are getting told off or something, right? And then they post it online of like, "Oh, look at my kid crying as I tell them off." Like, what the fuck are you trying to achieve with this? You're a bad parent, because well done, you've achieved it.
Yeah, but it's between that and then one of the other themes I feel like it shows is the agreement you make with predators and nature. How like things now, as time's gone on, we've like tamed a lot of animals and we take them for granted or whatever. But one of the things it deals with in this is making it making agreements with predators and not patronising them because they're predators for a reason, or they're dangerous for a reason.
Yeah.
You should take their like communication, as a friendship, not to rely on it too much because you don't know what's going to happen. Like
There's like a mutual understanding as such.
exactly, a mutual understanding is a very good way.
I read a thing a while ago, whereas like obviously like pretty much any animal could kill us, but I think I can never remember if it's alligators or crocodiles. I can never remember which one it is, but one of them actively hunts humans. Like if it sees a human, it will go for it. Whereas like most animals will be like, oh shit, a human, and like leg it. Like bears are probably, it's like some bears will be like, oh shit, now I'm not being involved. But if a crocodile or an alligator either or sees a human, they'll be like, I'm fucking going for it. Yeah, little fun fact.
So the other thing I would say is I don't want to, like, as I said, because I enjoyed it so much and I feel like a lot of the film is based on the content itself. I don't want to like tell you
It's
too
hard to
much.
talk about it.
It's
but
hard to talk about, but I want to talk about it a lot anyway, as I say, but I don't want to spoil about it. But what we'll say is that between the like smart, insightful themes and how fun a lot of the scenes are, and the great direction and the cast, and like a lot of the good things, it dodges the potential by the numbers premise it has. Like if I was to just tell you, like, it's set in a desert in America, and that gives you a big hint towards what the big baddie could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of that exact point, it has potential to be so by the numbers, even like a B horror film. But it doesn't, to be fair.
It's not like overly predictable.
No, it's not overly predictable at all, I don't think.
Because like 99.9% of horror films are like absolutely predictable. Like they just have like there's like a structure curve that every single one goes on, where it's like the really popular one tends to be the one that's killed first and stuff like that. I'm talking about what horror films that are like with high school kids, or as we call them, secondary school kids. But the whole sort of like typically it's the black one that's killed first as well, and then it's like the popular one, or the popular one is the one that survives, and then through the whole ordeal, right, she's become like so much more aware and confident in herself, and she no longer wants to be the popular one because she's gone through this whole ordeal. So what you're saying is it doesn't follow that sort of structure. It's completely new in its own approach.
It physically can't, which is good because there's no cast like that. It's not an ensemble piece with like a jock in the cabin in the woods. There's not the geeky guy. There's not the couple. There's not the so-and-so. So, if anything, and like for what it's worth, like I've mentioned this in the past, and I should get my I like to think 95% is my original idea, but like Empire, I think like compared it to Jaws, and like there's a character, and that's how I'd establish the cast and character like ensemble in it, especially towards the end. How there's a veteran figure in it. There's a character who's motivated to do the right thing, type of thing, and he's the main one. But like what I like about it is the brother and sister like relationship is like a yin and yang thing. They both need each other, but they both bring different strengths, like and like complement each other in that respect.
Do they like get on as siblings, or are they just they're at each other's throats? But now Dad's died, we have to work together.
Well, both really, which is good. As you say, like I think because their dad died, they have to work more together. But it's not like they hate each other, but also
Yeah.
Because that would be a very obvious premise. That would.
And they both get on each other's tits as well, which is fair enough. Which I know what happens. Like I'm an only child, but like I can imagine that happens.
Yeah, I got a brother, and I can tell you it happens. Less so as you get older, but
it's well, I say this a lot as like a compliment with films, but some films and it gets on my tits. Like I draw it I draw as a bad example of this, and I think it's because it was crap film as a whole. But I watched very reluctantly. I watched it in about fucking 4 parts, I think. I thought I'd started watching it. Is G.I. Joe Snake Eyes had so much like potential. As Andrew Koji, it's Henry Golding. It's a good act. I thought it could be a good action film. The pacing for that's crap. I think that's on for like. I swear to God, it's probably on for 4 hours, but it's not. Like just not, probably on less than 2 hours. But the pacing for this, I checked the runtime myself. Like it's 2 hours 15 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. If anything, you are like, left wanting more.
What's funny is it's so rare for you to shit on a film. The fact you just went the pacing of it, and it's just crap.
It's just shit like that.
It's like if Mikey says it's crap, it's definitely crap.
It's just really, no, it's really crap. But no, I couldn't get into that whatsoever. G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, and like as I said, like Kieran's right. Like I do, like I'm overly like optimistic with a lot of things, but it's not like I'm using. I'm like, there you are. If you want to say there's a convince me episode, I convince you not to watch G.I. Joe Snake Eyes on Amazon. I didn't even have to go out my way to watch it, and I felt I regret it. So I mean, I didn't even go to fucking cinema.
Waste of my fucking time.
Waste of my fucking time, indeed. But this is on for 2 hours 15 minutes, and
that's quite long.
And it is quite long, especially for a horror film. I feel like, as I said, I don't watch a load of horror films, but you think 2 hours 15, is that really going to keep me like quite on the edge of my seat for that time? As I say, what I feel like it does well is if you're not on the edge of your seat, you're probably like smirking or like you're amused or laughing or whatever, some stuff. Also, like there's some gets you thinking as well, which is good. It's not an overly beautiful film, but as I said, it's shot well, and like it's got some captivating scenes. That's what I'd say. It's more captivating than it is like, oh, that's beautiful.
So it's more so about the acting than the cinematography.
No, not so much that. I think like the acting is great, but like the cinematography captivates some mad points, like, and the sound design, like.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if horror films have anything going for them, it's sound design.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, I can't. I convince you. I recommend it a lot. I'm trying to.
I mean, do you want to jump into spoilers, like, because?
I don't. Yeah, we'll jump into spoilers, and this is spoiling it for you now, though. But you quote unquote asked for it, so this will be spoilers now. So, like I heavily suggested, because set in America on a desert, the big bad is like it's a UFO. That is the big bad, and the UFO is sucking people up, like as you'd presume. And this is what I like about it so much, is if it was done well, like it wouldn't take much for it to be done bad and for it to be like so stupid. It's a UFO sucking people up, whatever. And between it feeling scary and a bit like a bit intense, and the questions it asks you, and it doesn't overly rely on the UFO itself. It's the alien theme is done well. Like,
yeah,
I can't think of like, apart from like I think it's like the original Alien. I can't think of many like extraterrestrial horror films which are actually like
Super 8. I actually really enjoyed that
scary.
film.
Well, I've never watched Super 8 to be fair, so
No.
after this you've convinced me to watch Super 8.
I say because it's not. I wasn't sure if I'd enjoy it because it was loads of kids. But what I enjoyed most about it is that these kids were trying to create a horror film, right? Originally, when a train accident happens and it turns out there's an actual horror beast on the run. So it's about them sort of trying to film it and use it in their, amateur film. And it reminds me so much of when, I was their age trying to do my own little films at home. And sort of trying to film and like an incident would occur or something and you try and like incorporate it or something. Or I remember one time I had like the Hercules military transporter planes. I had one of those fly over my house. So I got like my camera out and I was filming it and I'm like, how am I going to incorporate this into the film? I was like, I've got to use it somehow. I mean, when all the lockdown and everything happened and all the streets and everything were locked down. You couldn't go out your houses. I mean, I didn't do it because obviously we weren't allowed to leave the house. But I wanted to go out into like town and film town as being like just a ghost town, like absolutely like a wasteland as such. And I'm like, you know, I use it as archive footage in the future as like something or other. But it's you would always try and film these different things, and just that film, I generally didn't think the film was going to be as good as it was until I saw it. But anyway, that's not the point of this episode. Anyway.
Well, you've convinced me to watch Superman, so I'll have to give it a back.
But as you say, like, there's not a lot of good alien type things out there. They tend to be like really bad. I mean, Paul wasn't bad. It's because they took the piss out of it rather than trying to make it too realistic or whatever. But you got Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like that was decent. I mean, a lot of people are gonna want me dead after I say this, but I did not like E.T.
You did not like E.T.? I'll be one of those
So,
people
I
who
thought
wants
it's
to be dead.
so boring.
Nah, it's good, man. It's a classic kids film, that is. And I think even watching it now, I watched it quite recently. Nah, it's a good film, that is. It's good. It's emotional. Like. Nah, I think you're wrong, though. It's emotional and it's quite heartfelt, and it's like it's not necessarily action, but
I just feel like it's overhyped for what it is.
nah, I disagree now. I think it's gold. Like.
Talking about the UFO though, I watched the trailer. Obviously I haven't seen the film, and I assumed it was going to be a UFO anyway, so I don't think they really hid that well, because immediately I was like, well, some sort of UFO. You know, it seems to be pulling people up.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Like to the point where Charlotte only watched half the trailer. Well, no, she didn't even watch any of the trailer. I convinced Charlotte to go without watching the trailer. I think I said I think we've discussed this on the podcast before, but I know we've definitely discussed it between me and you. Saying a lot of trailers nowadays reveal too much.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean, and like it being a UFO, I think I just danced around that because, as I say, I think it probably does spoil too much. There's a bit in it where Stephen Yeun's character owns a theme park in the desert, like, and he's essentially Daniel Craig's character's like neighbour, but in like a very Hollywood rancher sense, in the sense that he's like half a mile down the road or something, a couple of miles down the road.
Yeah.
And he sees him, and he knows the UFO's there, and he's making, like I say, a big spectacle of it, and he's trying to get, like, there's people in his theme park, and he rallies him up out like on the bleachers, and he gets them together, and he's like, quote unquote, not making a sacrifice with one of the horses, but he's getting them there, and all of a sudden, like, all of the people, including Stephen Yeun's character, gets sucked off, and not in a good way. Like, they all get picked up by the UFO, and like I think it's like 50 of them, and it's all on the news then. And then up until that point, the going-ons of the UFO and like quote unquote terrorizing the ranch and like killing Keith David's character. Up until then, it's only just been like getting the horses, and like the Daniel Craig's character's been trying to like film it, but up until then, it was quite a close knit secret between these people who were trying to like catch it on film. And then there's 50 people get like go missing. It becomes more of a thing. And TMZ, like I mentioned, try and get on it, and in the end, they do defeat it. But even for you, like we're on spoilers chat now, it's the way they defeat it. It's like it's interesting. A lot happens, and like I don't want to spoil it too much, but again, it very much relies on the good chemistry between the brother and sister dynamic, and how they help each other out.
So how they use their strengths together to defeat evil.
That sounds very corny, but yeah, to a degree. So now it's good, and it has very clean cut ending, but also not, like as I said, in the sense it's quite thought provoking in the end.
How so? Lay it on me.
So it happens, and like the whole thing is like they want to catch it on video, throughout the film, and then instead, so they're both in danger, and she saves it by getting it to choke the UFO, because it's like a beast. Like, it's not so much a UFO as a spaceship. It's also, like, as I said, it was an animal. It's like a predator, and he gets it to choke on, like, basically loads of flags and banners and, like, debris.
Mm.
And as an audience member, it's doing that, but also there's a well in this theme park. It goes up to the well, and she takes a picture of it. And luckily enough, she gets the picture. But even then, as an audience member, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, I hope she's took the picture." But at this point, she needs to save her brother, and you think that's not the point of the film. The point of the film is that, like, she should be saving her brother over than getting the picture.
Well, yeah, because they lost their dad.
Because
So,
lots of the days you don't lose
yeah.
your brother, but like she does, and save your own spoilers. She does save the brother, luckily, and he's fine. But even then, in the last closing moments of the film, you're like, oh, she got the picture of the UFO as she's killed it, and like you're concerned. You as an audience member, you're like questioning yourself, like, have I just watched this film and learnt nothing? But because it entices you in, like, the whole rest of the film is leading up towards her getting it, and her character's motivation then, like, changes, but it happens to be like she gets the picture anyway. But no, it's good like that. It's intense, but also like has some funny bits, and like, as I say, both this and Get Out get you to ask questions, and it like does social commentary on like stuff without being too heavy-handed. And like, you don't want to go to like the cinema and for it to be edutainment. Do you know what I mean? And you don't want it to be. You don't want to be patronised, because yeah. I don't pretend to be it now, but like, nobody wants to like be treated like a kid when they get to the cinema. But
No.
this is good because it tells you to put your thinking cap on without being like sitting you down and like Clockwork Origin and saying, you're gonna think like this now. What about this? What do you think about this? And that's my favourite thing about it. That's my convince you on Nope.
Was it worth seeing it in the cinema, or do you think it's something that you could easily just watch on your telly at home?
Not to sound like an old fart and like we are a film podcast. I think if you're like semi-asked about anything, you should go see it in the cinema, because like cinema's a good experience. But no, you can watch it at home.
Yeah, it's not like it's the big
Like,
screen.
it would be good. Like, if anything, like I mentioned, like how good the sound design is.
Yeah.
So I got a pair of like gaming earphones, and couldn't say the one I'm using now, and they're quite like, they're meant to have surround sound, and now I like really good earphones, more so than ever. I've been using them to watch films and stuff, and you really feel the difference. So if anything, I'd say like have a good sound setup when you watch it.
Yeah.
Is there anything random you'd like to know before you watch it yourself? I can only imagine it will be on like Now TV towards the end of the year, or like beginning of next year, because it only just came out at the end of August. It still is in cinemas, I imagine, because I watched it last week. So I imagine it's still going to be in cinemas for another week or so.
Was it only last week? What time's gone faster than that?
Yeah, not this week, just gone, the week after I saw it. But
Yeah.
it came out on the 24th of August. So I think like you've essentially got like another week or so
Yeah.
to go see it.
So it seems interesting, to be fair, but then at the same time, it kind of sounds a bit like you've said it hasn't been like overly predictable, but in my head, like when you mentioned certain aspects of this happened and that happened, I sort of like sussed that would be the case, or that's where this goes and that's where that goes. Such as the talk of, the father's died, so the kids have come back to figure out why the father's dead, and then all of a sudden, they basically have to defeat the evil together, and then there's an opportunity for one of them to prove the existence of it, or happen to save the brother, and then she ends up, ultimately saving the brother, because otherwise there's no character arc there. And then and then in the end, eventually they get the photo, and they unveil the UFO and save the world, as it were?
Well, yes and no. What I do like about it is the end isn't Emerald or M's character being a celebrity because she's revealed it. Because otherwise, like, it would be a piss take, wouldn't it? Showing the negativity of like cashing in on tragedies and stuff like that, and then she goes and does so. But yeah, I know what you mean. In like whether it's the way I've like pitched it or like summarized it, but that's you all over. To be fair, I think that's why we like it because
Yeah, that is me all over. I like to.
you like being very smug and rip into things. But like, I think that's why we work as a dynamic. I like to think. Tell us, comment below if you love us. Tell us if you don't like us.
Yeah.
But why does Kieran have to ruin everything?
Give us structural feedback, God. But that's for moment of your week, Kieran. What's your moment of the week?
Yeah, my moment of the week then, as I said, it was a little bit. Not so much this, but to Stephen Yen's sort of character, how he had that tragedy, as it were, as a kid, and being like everyone being attacked by monkeys or something. You were saying?
Yeah.
And
that's probably the most the most intense scene in the film.
Yeah, and that sort of riding that sort of tragedy, right, for fame and glory, as it were.
Yeah.
So basically, the film I watched is called Not Okay. So I don't know if I've seen it advertised. It's on Disney Plus. It wasn't at cinemas, I don't believe. I think it was just like straight to streaming.
Yeah.
And it's starring Zoe Deutsch, who is oh shit, what's her mum called? Her mum is Marty McFly's mum.
Is it? Oh, the chick off Karate Kid, like.
Yeah. I haven't actually had her name.
Isn't she been in loads of things recently?
Leah something. Leah Thompson, that's it.
Oh yeah, I know her. She's been in Bad Grandpa and like.
Well, she's most notable in Back to the Future.
She's Madison in Zombie. No, the Zoe Dutch character.
Oh, Zoe Dutch, yeah.
Yeah, she's in like Madison in Zombie Double Tap. I've got it up now.
And she was I mean, I suppose that's probably her best sort of like movie film. But I think one of the better films I saw her in, which is a film I didn't expect it to be good, is called.
No, she's in White.
What is it called? Where does it go? Let it go. Oh, Before I Fall, which is a film I did not expect to enjoy at all. Because I thought it'd be I started watching it. I thought, oh god, this is a chick flick. And then it wasn't. It was more like it was like Groundhog Day in a way. Like every day she was living the same day again. And that's because at the end of the day she dies. And no, someone dies, and it's about her trying to figure out how they led to that moment of dying and how she saves them. And she saves them by sacrificing herself, right? Because she was like the really popular bitchy kid, and it's about her. Yeah, it was. I can't say too much, but Before I Fall, I think is a really good film. But this particular film, Not Okay. This is. I'm going to totally spoil it right now. So if you don't want to know anything about it, then like skip forward. But basically, I mean, there's a bit of description in the title.
Ambitious young woman finds followers and fame when she poses as the survivor of a deadly attack, but she soon learns that online notoriety comes with a terrible price.
Terrible price. It doesn't really sum it up that well, but basically, you can already draw conclusions of what it's about. But in an essence, she wants to be popular. She wants to be a bit more famous, and she wants to get the attention of this boy who's played by Dylan O'Brien, who's a great actor. If you haven't seen Love and Monsters, watch that. That's a brilliant film. And basically, she tries to impress him by saying she's going on a writing retreat to Paris when she's not. And then she's like, why the fuck did I say that sort of thing? And then when she tries to think about how to work it out, she decides, I'll just Photoshop myself in photos of Paris. So she does all this. She tells her work colleagues, she tells her parents and everyone she's gone to Paris, when really she's just in her apartment. And then she wakes up one morning and she's got like loads of notifications and stuff, and she's like, oh my god, like I'm really popular now, sort of thing. And then she kind of just realizes that there's been a terrorist attack in Paris, and there's been bombs going off. And she posted one in the morning saying like, you know, doing the morning right or whatever. And she stood outside the Arch de Triomphe and she's about to go get herself some, you know, some breakfast or whatever. And one of the bombs went off at the Arc de Triomphe like moments after she posted that. So everyone's like concerned, like shit, she dead or whatever, and she gets in contact with everyone. And then she's like, oh shit, like what do I do now? Do I come clean saying I wasn't in Paris, or do I double down? And I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's something that triggers her to double down on it, right? And what she does is she calls her parents and tells them like, oh yeah, I'm fine, like everything's okay, you know, and they're all just trying to organize to get her home as soon as possible. And when she gets to the airport and she sneaks into the departure area, so she's like, it looks like she's coming off the plane with everyone else, and like she greets her parents and they're all crying and hugging, and there's loads of paparazzi, like photographers and stuff there. Like, I say paparazzi, but paparazzi's for like famous people, isn't it really? So I'll say journalists with there.
Yeah.
And they take photo of her hugging her dad, and then that becomes like a big like spread on Instagram. And then she comments going, oh my god, like this is me or something, and then it just blows up from there, and like her work colleagues and everyone ask her about it. And she's working at like a magazine company, or I say magazine company, it's a website company, because who reads magazines anymore? And she creates an article about her experience, and obviously she's making it all up, and she doesn't really know what to say, so she has to go to a survivors meeting, and she talks with the people there that have been, you know, in other bombings or shootings and stuff, and she meets people there, and she draws on their experience and writes them as her own. And then all of a sudden she starts to get that popular notoriety that she's been craving, and then she gets the attention off Dylan O'Brien, and you know, and they start dating, and well, that's dating loose term. They fuck one time. He barely lasts 2 minutes, and then he fucks off with some other bird, right? It's brilliant. And it just goes to show her that, you know, the whole fame thing is not what it was cracked up to be. You know, she did all this to impress him, and you know, he's a bit of a flake, you know. And then she meets this girl called Ro, and basically she was in a school shooting. Well, not a school shooting. She was in a type of shooting, and she lost her sister in the shooting. And now it's all about, you know, trying to go to rallies and stuff and talk about these shootings, and trying to, you know, get the government to sort out their amendments and whatever. So it's very, you know, social commentary. It's very much relevant to the way the world is now, and it's a very interesting thing, because she starts to like see it from this girl's point of view, and she starts to feel, you know, unsure about what she'd done, thinking like, I fucked up, like everyone thinks I did this, but I didn't, I lied. And then one co-worker who's like the bitchy co-worker, that she's a lesbian co-worker, right, and she's never got on with her, and the biggest flaw of this film is her co-worker, because she's not likable at all, even though she's completely in the right with everything she's done, right? So they've given her that sort of very stereotypical lesbian, hates all straight people vibe, and it doesn't quite bode well for the character as such, I feel. And she basically finds it out because she goes on a laptop and realizes she's been photoshopping. And
Doesn't fit well, because a lot of her principles are all right anyway.
Yeah. And she basically says, you got to come clean or I'm telling people. So then she has to write like a retraction sort of article as such, and then it's completely exposed about, like, you know, all that she lied about this. And then her basically her new best friend that she met at the survivors thing finds out, and she goes and does this sort of I want to say it was like a talent show thing, but I don't really know what it was. It was like a big sort of event or something, and she does like slam poetry, and she just like absolutely demolishes Zoe Deutsch's character in this slam poetry. And Zoe Deutsch is like there hiding in the crowd, sort of thing, because she's there. She wants to apologize for what she did, and how she manipulated her, because they were doing this whole I am not okay movement, and like everyone was on board, and they were saying like, oh, Kendall Jenner's on board, and all those random people, and they were sort of using that to boost her stand. And then when she's like, oh, I lied about it all, she goes and does this slam poetry, this Rowan girl does, and it's like, it is a brilliant bit of monologuing. And basically the end of the film is her, Zoe Deutsch's character, then just walking out of that stadium, that hall as such, after that slam poetry bit, and it's like credits. I feel like the credits could have come in a bit sooner, like soon as she finished the slam poetry, she should have just had this real stern like look on her face, like she does have that stern look, and then just cut it there, because it's it's just remaking the point rather than watching Zoe Deutsch's character walk back out of the auditorium and off, sort of thing. But the thing that stayed with me, and as you said about this film called No, you were thinking about it afterwards, and to me this film very much it shows the very way of life we are currently now engaged with. The whole everyone wants to be famous for well, they don't want to be famous for anything important. They just want to be famous for the sake of being famous. They don't need to be anything of importance. They just want that notoriety. They think that being popular is the ultimate high. And, it's that sort of, I want to call it a mental illness as such, because, it is the fact that she felt in order to
it's validation, isn't it?
Yeah, in order to impress this guy, she had to figure out these lies, and then she just ends up going deeper and deeper into these lies. And we all like tell a white lie here or there, and then sometimes we end up finding ourselves deeper in that lie than we originally thought we intended to. But then there's some other people that can't seem to turn that around or whatever, and they just end up going deeper and deeper and make things far worse for themselves. And this whole reach for popularity and notoriety and fame and all that, just to be I want to be famous for being famous, sort of thing. I see that as a mental illness. It's something needs to be addressed, and that was really what I gathered from the film. It's
and the thing about it is it's very plausible, isn't it? It's like
everything that happened was plausible. There wasn't something that happened where I was like, well, that wouldn't happen, or that wouldn't happen. Like everything like totally made sense. It was I was watching a film, but there's some I sort of also felt like I was watching a documentary. It was weird, and there was a big text at the beginning of the film as well that said, this character, the main character, is a very unlikable character or something. It was basically a disclaimer, basically saying that we do not condone the actions of this character, which is weird that you have to put that in front of a film. I don't know if it's because it's on Disney and maybe kids will see it or something. I don't know.
Obviously, it's not for kids, but I think what it is really is just like, because it's such a normal thing. I think it's trying to, like, as you say, I think you shouldn't have to, but it's trying to say, like, get a grip, like, this is not a good thing, as you say.
Yeah. Because it's weird, because after I read that, obviously, then you watch the film. And as I said, the co-worker I felt was the most likable character, and I didn't mind Zoe Deutsch's character. Obviously, I didn't agree with everything she was doing, but I didn't watch her thinking, oh, what a bitch, like, I hate her so much. I didn't think that, so, yeah, it could have been done a bit better, that I really did overly question what she was doing, but I think I was more so along with the ride, because it just felt so, it touched home too much. Not that I've experienced it or anyone I know necessarily has experienced exactly what this character had gone through, but the fact that it was so of the times, as it were.
Yeah, I realised the irony of me and you doing a media, which you obviously, quote unquote, relies on followers and following. But
we're not chasing it to be famous. We're chasing it because we enjoy doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
We have some substance.
But I like to think so very much, but I appreciate like a lot of people do like pride themselves on how many followers they've got or how many fingers they need to see, like people need to see this or such and such different things like that. But it definitely sounds interesting, despite you like giving me a rundown, which I know a lot. I know.
I mean, it's not something I could spoiler. It's a very sort of linear story that you can kind of guess, but it's more so you're going along with the journey and understanding it. Like I say, it's more of a documentary sort of feel. You feel like you're just watching someone's descent into,
Fucking themselves over.
yeah. I mean, I doubt I described it or gave it any justice whatsoever. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best film I've ever seen, but it's just after I watched it, like it was better than I anticipated it to be. Because I've enjoyed stuff she's done, so I thought, oh, I'll put it on and see where it goes and what it's like. And I just couldn't stop watching it. I wasn't, because I originally put it on because I was like, oh, I'll watch half of it now and I'll watch the other half tomorrow night or something. But I just watched the whole thing all the way through because I was like, I need to sort of know how the resolution comes about in this film. And I like the way it ends. As I say, I wish it ended like 3 minutes earlier, but the way it ends with no resolution, I love that.
Yeah, I like it when films do that. Sometimes you don't need to like kick the arse of it. It doesn't have to be tied on with a bow.
Yeah.
But my moment of the week, or like choice of the week, is I've just coming out of COVID, so I had the like time to finish it. And like I said on the last episode, I was very hyped for watching it. I've watched all 10 episodes of season 5 of Cobra Kai, and it is absolutely great. It is so.
Did you really just bring in Cobra Kai after I just mentioned about my moment of the week?
Yeah.
Chalk and cheese, mate. Chalk and cheese.
It's chalk and cheese. And for that exact reason, Cobra Kai is.
Gonna end it on a high, is it?
Oh yeah, on a bit of fun. Like it's despite the season 5 is quite dark. Some people really do get beaten up. There's some peril situations, but you can watch Cobra Kai and you cannot not have a good time. Like it's corny, but it's like there's some like emotional beats in it. You take there's some as the seasons have followed on, it's how the combat's got better. The actual quote unquote cry, which I think there's some bits in it which definitely aren't cry. It's more brutal than cry, but the cast is very enjoyable. It's funny. It has some weird bits in it, and bearing in mind I'm in like my late 20s, so I wasn't a kid when the original Karate Kid came out. Like obviously I wasn't even born, but like a lot of people have watched the films. Like a lot of the other seasons has good callbacks to the other films, and characters. So like this is its 5th season, and like it builds up on characters' relationships and rivalries. So like 2 characters are always fighting, like Robbie and Miguel, who like is probably the main rival in the show. That like goes down an avenue, which like you kind of expect, but also don't like, and it's not rushed, so that's good. Like there's a couple of the rivalries, and these will make it more interesting for season 6. Is like, are not so much put to bed, but also like not even resolved. Just they see each other's perspective, and that's what I like in this. Is that like all it takes is for somebody to sit down on it and go, "Oh, but what about this? Like, have you ever thought of it from their point of view?" And they're just like, "Oh shit, yeah." And there's a bit more to it than that, but that's what's good about it. The soundtrack's jokes as well. The soundtrack's very 80s.
Well, you love the 80s though, don't you?
I like 80s soundtrack. The episodes are only on for like 35 minutes as well. Very easy to binge.
Yeah.
And they're fun. Like
Are they released weekly, or are they like?
they all on there. They all got released like last Friday. Like, so to be fair, I'd watched half the season come like Tuesday, I think. So I'd watched like a lot of it by then. It's the only thing I would say about it. I like like a lot of like, not trying to be an incel, but I was on Reddit like looking at it and see what other people's opinions are, and like not a lot of people. Some people agree with me, but there's a fight in it towards the end between two characters, and like basically a character wins, and you think to himself that wouldn't fucking happen. It just wouldn't happen, and purely just number one, like his size and like his like fighting ability compared to the other characters, like he wouldn't beat him. But the more you look into it, and like people justified it on the Reddit, and like if you look at the evidence following it before, you're like, oh, it makes sense. But like the two warring factions of Cobra Kai and Eagle Fang / Miyagi Do, they're like fighters, and like the way the series goes is like, to use wrestling terms, there's a lot of fighters which turn like from the beginning of the series they're heel or face, then they turn heel, then they're back to face, and like between that it's them, like I say, learning perspective or like growing, which is good. But like what they also do on it is between like the actual two karate tournaments they've had on it is you have like rankings, and like the fandom talk about who's the best one or whatever.
What, the fandom in the series, like in the show, or you mean the fandom online in real world?
Both, like.
All right.
So, but also it's incredibly light-hearted as well. Like a lot of people take it online very seriously or whatever, but like it's a film about like high schoolers kicking fuck out of each other, and like obviously Daniel LaRusso's in it and Johnny Lawrence. They're just as much as like the main characters, and even more so in season 5. But like their season and like the rest of the show, but their seriousness is like done well. Like their storylines are quite emotional when it needs to be, but also there's a lot of tongue and cheek in it, and also it's refreshing to watch like something like that, because like a lot of the time, like I am watching serious dramas, which I do love. I think that's the bread and butter of TV shows in general, and like, films in general is like a good drama.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned it in show on the podcast that like I'm watching We Own This City with John Bernthal, and like I can't. To be fair, there's a lot of other big actors. There's a lot of like quote unquote alumni from The Wire, HBO's The Wire. Excuse me, but that's a great TV show. But sometimes you want to break and watch something a bit corny and a bit like refreshing, and Cobra Kai ticks that box. But yeah, this week I suppose we've got like quite a good variety of things for you to suggest to watch.
Yeah, you got the horror. You got something a bit more
You got something
serious,
else, like,
and then you got whatever you just did.
You got like the Karate Kid spin-off TV show, which to be fair, Kieran laughs at you. I swear to God, you go on Netflix now, and this isn't a lie, people. You look at top 10. I think Cobra Kai is number 1. It's fucking gold. Kieran needs to give it a go.
That just means number 1 in your household. That doesn't mean worldwide.
Oh yeah, it is number 1 in my household. But like ranking wise, I'm gonna next time Kieran comes down, and like I'm gonna force him to watch it, and Kieran can.
I'll just go bed early.
Repeat it. He can like have his reaction on the podcast. But yeah, it's absolutely gold. I think
I'll be absolutely eating my words. Like, it's the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, Kieran will come home from watching like 4 episodes at my house, and then like the next episode will be a deep dive in Cobra Kai because he's watched all 5 seasons in 6 days. Like.
Yeah, I doubt it, but yeah.
But yeah, it introduces like some characters from the old film series back. Like there's a character Chosen who was the bad guy for like in the second Karate Kid film, and he's like basically one of the main faces in this season, and he's funny, and he's also quite honourable, like in typical like Miyagi-Do fashion. His jokes, you see like Daniel LaRusso's character, and like having an all-time low because he gets wrecked, like, and he's like his family get like quote unquote torn away from him by his own doing, which is even more upsetting per se. But yeah, I definitely give.
But what is Cobra Kai? Is that like a move or?
See, that's what I mean. It upsets me that Kieran even asked this question. So Cobra Kai is not a move, Kieran. It's like the dojo. So
Use the Cobra Kai on him.
it's not use a Cobra Kai. It's not a spinning back fist. So the reason I laugh at that is because, as I said, it's like the spin-off of the Karate Kid films. So Cobra Kai is, you have Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso, and Johnny Lawrence is meant to be the bad guy, but let's face it, especially if you're a fan of Cobra Kai, Johnny Lawrence is the good guy of the Karate Kid films. Daniel LaRusso is the bad guy. But Johnny Lawrence, he got trained by John Kreese at the Cobra Kai dojo, and Cobra Kai TV show is him 20, 30 years later Johnny Lawrence reopening the Cobra Kai dojo through him under his banner, and how he gets it. He retrains kids with the philosophy he learned, but he changes it a little bit because his sensei John Kreese was a bastard. But
So it's a bit like if there was a Rocky TV show, it would be called Mighty Mix.
Yeah, exactly. To a degree, yeah. And that's how it's spun off onto that. But that's what Cobra Kai is, the dojo. But at the start of the series, it's a good thing. It's ran by Johnny Lawrence, who's the main protagonist of the show, and then it quote unquote de-evolves, so the bad guys have it. And then Danny works with Johnny or doesn't work with Johnny throughout the show because there's the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. That philosophy works into it, not to be too over dramatic, too pretentious on a Karate Kid TV show. But no, it's that's what Cobra Kai is, the dojo. Oh, what is Cobra Kai? Is it a movie? Oh, I can't remember. Oh no.
Triggered, are we?
Triggered indeed, man. Oh, the Cobra Kai is my.
I'm gonna say that loads now. I am.
Yeah.
What? Do the Cobra Kai?
Do the Cobra Kai? Sweep the leg. Sweep the leg is the move they do. But to wrap up the show, thank you as always for listening. If you have any quote unquote feedback, give us a review on whatever you can on the old.
If anyone's got any suggestions of something they want us to cover,
suggestions what you want us to cover, yeah, exactly. We know, on the horizon, we're thinking of doing Dying Light 2 next, which, again, please don't beat us up, our loyal followers of 20 people. That I know we're a bit behind on that, but typical fact, we've both completed it.
We've mentioned it a couple of times in moments of weeks, but we realise we've got a lot to say.
We've got a lot to say, and also the reason it took us a while to complete is one of the topics we cover on next week's episode when we do that. But yeah, thank you as always for listening. Share, tell anybody, and give it a listen again. You know what I mean? Bump those numbers up. What?
Just keep it on repeat. You don't even have to listen. Put it on mute.
Keep it on repeat. Yeah, share it to people. Despite us mugging off social media low-key on this episode, and share it on your social media. Tell everybody.
Yeah. Make us famous so we can lie about stuff.
Make us famous, and I'll Photoshop myself. But
you can't do that.
You can't part there, mate. No, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye.